Well, it's Thursday again. Throwback Thursday, you know what that means. Time for another flashback review. Hey, what's going on? I'm Jesse. You're watching JLSComics. Thanks for stopping back again to the channel here. I do appreciate it. It is Thursday, and that means it's time for another one of my Throwback Thursday, aka flashback reviews. I had a nice message from somebody named Grant. Shout out to you, buddy. Last week saying that they got their first comic, which I thought was awesome, and just such, I remember, well, it got me thinking about those days, my first comic and when I started out, and I thought, what better way to do another flashback review than to show where I started, where I got sort of my first toes dipped in the water for this, amazing world that we read and see. So I figured I would talk about it. I've mentioned it a few times in the past. It's a book that I had gotten from my uncle, and it just sort of captivated me and drew me in, at that young age, and, my mind and imagination were, at the best they could be really at the time. So ever since that one book, and I still remember what it is, I've loved superheroes and comic books and this mythology and world ever since. And that was like I was 5 years old, so it's been a while, let's just say that. So the book we're going to talk about, actually, it's part of the original event that was unto itself. There's been story arcs and crossovers for quite some time, but the first real event that took place in its own book was actually Contest of Champions for Marvel Comics, and this was all the way back in the early 1980s. It was a 3-part series, and it's still a name that you see all the time. There's a game named after it. There's a current volume, which is this one here. Current volume of the title. So it's been out. People still love the name. It's still relevant and surprisingly cheap. I got these for a really, really good price. And unfortunately, I had a collection when I was younger, and unfortunately, it had to go. There were some changes and moves and things in life that happen, as they do. So I had to sell off my first collection. I lost that book, and I hadn't realized it was part of this whole other series. And I'll tell you why in a second. It's pretty interesting. I hadn't realized it was part of this whole series for the longest time, and I just had this one little part of the story. I didn't have the entire story. So 2015, last year, I finally I found all the pieces, and I finally put the story together, and it made so much more sense. It was so much more pleasing because I had that tie to that one book in there, but also now I had, after all this time, the entire story, the beginning, the middle, and the end, not just like a part of the middle. So the book we're going to talk about, well, I'll get to it in a second. So this is Contest of Champions. It's the current volume. It's fun. There was one for Secret Wars, that 2015 Secret Wars, that is. But that has, of course, ended. I have that somewhere in my Secret Wars stuff. So that's Contest of Champions #1. Okay, that's not what we're talking about. There was also a trade paperback softcover here. Now this collects Contest of Champions 1 through 3. It's a $10 book. Okay, see on the back it says Collecting Marvel Superheroes Contest of Champions 1 through 3. It's a pretty cool story, but you'll see this look familiar. There it is. Okay, so this is how it looks. Okay, Contest of Champions Part 1, Contest of Champions Part 2. Okay, now we're talking like 1981 when these came out. Okay, Contest of Champions Part 3. But there was 5 parts. And the one that I got, and we're going to talk about this book here. It's West Coast Avengers Annual #2. Giant size annual from 1987. Okay? Incidentally, there's a neat the marriage there on the back. But, so we're talking, so why on earth did this, which came out in 1981, why was there such a delay, right? And I always wondered that. Like, it kind of confused me a little bit. And I got to read about it in this collected edition. There's a letter from 1999 by Tom DeFalco in the back, talking about exactly that. And see, there's a teaser for that book I showed you. talking about the contest and what happened and, you know, who won or who didn't win. There was a question about it, and basically things happened. It was finally through with the contest. Tom DeFalco, that is. But for some reason they planned on doing a sequel because it didn't feel quite finished. So early 1980s, and it says it here, years passed. I had forgotten all about it until one afternoon when Mark dropped by my office. He informed me that he was finally going to wrap up the contest in 2 Avengers annuals that were scheduled to be published in 1987. Steve Englehart was the writer, a regular writer of West Coast Avengers, and would write the first half, and Mark needed someone for part 2. Since I shared the blame for the initial screw-up, that happy task was fine with him. So he went on and did it with Englehart, and it ended up being, at the end of 1987, finally a complete story. Okay, so the other one was the Avengers Annual 16, which is a pretty cool cover. And I never had that book. So all of this you can see, lots of components to it, but I only had this one. And I love this. And I remember I had my name written on it and stuff, and it was cool because they have all the Avengers there, tons of them. And I'm like, why are they fighting? Okay, so pretty cool, very typical of the time. Al Milgrom. So Steve Englehart did the story on this with Mark Gruenwald. Tom DeFalco, editor. He wrote the East Coast Annual. Al Milgrom did the art, of course. He did this cover as well. And we have Jim Shooter, of course, was sitting in the head chair at the time. So there's that. So it actually opens up, Death and Taxes. It opens up saying Death and Texas. Boom, right? Big opening there. So what they did every year, they would meet up in the Houston Astrodome, and the East Coast Avengers and the West Coast Avengers would play a softball game in the Houston Astrodome. And if you notice, they have on their costumes. Let me put it this way. They have on their costumes. So in full regalia, full costume, they're going to play a softball game. Okay? I mean, how else would you play, right? So then they're teasing. You got She-Hulk, Wonder Man, Moon Knight is here, Thor. Thor cracks a big one. Right home run. Boom, glass shatters at the top of the Astrodome. And then everybody looks up and they're like, what is that? There's this light in the sky, and they don't know what it is. And all of a sudden, boom, there's a little crack from where the ball went out. And then suddenly the whole top of the Astrodome shatters and goes plam, and Silver Surfer comes smashing into the Astrodome, flying right in from the top. And he's like, what? And all of a sudden, as he appeared, amazingly, the strange silver visitor from beyond, the stars spew sparkling, singing energy throughout the shattered stadium. And after a whole minute, it finally dissipates, and they're all disoriented. Okay? And there's a spirit there. And they're like, who is he? Who is this guy on this surfboard? And what the hell? It doesn't say hell. I added that. And then Iron Man, in his red armor, goes, Silver Surfer, the Fantastic Four assured us you'd left Earth for good. And he's like, I know I said that, I made a promise, but there's a terrible menace that's hanging over the Avengers. I came to warn you guys. So he recently, a being known as the Elder of the Universe, tried to kill the Silver Surfer. And that was if you want to look it up, Silver Surfer, #1. So he came to seek out, and for no sooner reasons, a chance to play, chance upon information that an elder planned to kill the Avengers. So he came racing back, and they're talking about the baseball game, and all of a sudden, he's got to take them away somewhere. He's like, I raced back with the power cosmic, and as I neared Earth, I saw the Elder's Eldritch Energy Bolt approaching. Okay, and all of a sudden they're running, and then all of a sudden, they're all dead. All the Avengers are dead in the Houston Astrodome. They look back because the West Coast guys are talking to the Silver Surfer, and they turn around and they're like, oh no, are we too late? And they're all just there, dead. They are quite literally dead. So Mockingbird goes, you got to be kidding me, Clinton. Hawkeye can't find a pulse. Right? So they're like, what the deuce is going on here? So then they talk about, I'm not playing a lone hand if a guy who never hassled me needs sleep. and that's from the Defenders. So he's like, you guys, talk about who you want to trust or not. So they're talking about the Elders. So I'll tell you who they are. They're the oldest living beings in the universe, each one the ultimate survivor of an otherwise long dead race. So you have a couple of them, and you remember one from Guardians of the Galaxy. Each one has found a thing that most intrigues him and focuses ancient life upon it. There's the Collector, the Gardener, and the Possessor. And the Grandmaster was one, but he died apparently in the original Contest of Champions, right? So that's the tie-in there. He's worked with other heroes only sparingly. And Moon Knight, he says, we were all at the Contest of Champions, and he died to bring the Collector back from death. And I don't want to give away the story. It talks about that a little bit. So like, wait, did we win? What happened? So they go and they get in their Quinjet and they follow him out because they want to go get to the bottom of this. Meanwhile, you got these dead Avengers. So he's like, come with me. So he goes and they find the Collector. Okay. So there he is. So they're talking, and they're like, you know what? The most powerful poison I could find. I'm the Collector, and my vast collection of venoms is varied, and all this stuff. So then he's talking about how they have to do another contest. Okay? They have to go and fight each other again. So they have to drink the poison to go to the battle world to fight. So they drink, and then boom, now the West Coast Avengers are dead. So now all the Avengers are dead in this book. It's only been 10 pages and all the Avengers are dead. So that's pretty interesting. So they go to this battle world and they start fighting it out, and I'll show you some of the pages here. It's fun. And I'm very biased on this book. It's an interesting book, but they're fighting back and forth. The art is not what it is today, so if you're used to the new modern books and the modern art style, this will be an adjustment for you. But it's fun seeing them kind of duel out. And if you remember from my X-Men Apocalypse review, the movie review, I was talking about how this is kind of like the year of dueling superheroes, right? So this kind of fits right into that, where, the superheroes are fighting back and forth. And it was fun, just reading about this. And not only that, but it was fun going back and seeing it again. And all of a sudden, Silver Surfer finds a certain somebody named Death. So now Death's involved in this. They died, of course, so that shouldn't be a giveaway for you. And then you got the Wasp with Hank. And then he catches her. He's like, whoosh, catches her right there. So they keep fighting. Wonder Man and Thor get to duke it out. And then you got Tigra fighting Dr. Druid, who, it's like a cheap Doctor Strange. So I'm not going to tell you how it ends, but then you also have Moon Knight and Black Knight fighting in this. So it's a fun book. I really liked it. This is the book that drew me in. I'm not going to show you this last page, but I will show you these cookies. Okay. This is the book that drew me in. And I really enjoyed it. You could get this book probably in the $1.50 bin book, $3, whatever. Cover price, $1.25 on it. So again, 1987. This is a great book. If you do get it, I highly recommend getting the entire run of it, so you can read it in its entirety. So if you get the book, start with Contest of Champions 1, 2, and 3. And then you pick up this. And then you finally, this will be what closes out the series. Now, if you don't want to go hunting down these, you could probably find them on eBay pretty quick. This book collects just use your words, Jesse. Parts 1 through 3. Okay, if you want to get the entire thing, there's hardcover and stuff as well. You want to get something called Avengers The Contest TPB. It says it right there, trade paperback. Okay, so that will collect was essentially 1 through 5. So that was my start for comics. That was what got me into it. This one book, this one adventure, you know, dealing with death, space, Silver Surfer. Everybody was in it. It was so cool, especially at that young age. I loved it. So it's been a fun ride ever since. But that's what I got for you. Have you ever read this? What did you think of it? Did this pique your interest? Do you think you might go and pick it up? Budget-wise, you definitely shouldn't be struggling to get this one here. So let me know what your thoughts down below. I'd be interested to hear all of that. I'm going to take a page out of somebody, another channel did a little voting thing. Punisher88, shout out to you. I'm giving you credit for this. Next week is going to be, of course, another Flashback review, okay? And I have 2 books here. Eventually, I'll end up doing them both, but I want to have you vote for which one I should review next week. Oh, for that book, let me give it a rating here. I'm going to give it 5 out of 5 stars because that was what drew me in. So a little biased there, but you know what? Full disclosure there on that rating. But you know, it's a fun book. Al Milgrom, can't go wrong with it. So Tom DeFalco, good guy as well. So next week, let me know in the voting. I may even do a poll. It might be here or it might be on Twitter. The options are for the review next week, New Mutants, and the other one is going to be Alpha Flight #1. So New Mutants #1 or Alpha Flight #1. Which one would you like to see me review here for the Flashback review? Okay, let me know down below. If there is a Twitter, poll up, I'll let you know. So there you go. This is Jesse here with JLSComics, and this has been another Flashback review. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.